On this week's episode of Sports Page, we took a look at the MIAA Cross Country Championships and hear from a top
successful weekends. Stay tuned as we discuss all things UCM sports.
Welcome to this week's episode of Sports Page. Alongside with my co-host, Allie Overstreet, I'm Jada Hill. Mules football started their two-game road trip this past weekend in Topeka, Kansas, where they took on the Washburn Ichabods for their homecoming game. Going into the matchup, both teams were 5-2 and tied for third in the MIAA. Let's take a look at those highlights. Mules waste no time as Brook Bowl scores on the first drive of the game, putting the Mules up 7-0 and giving Devontae Turner the spunk he needs to slide in the end zone for a touchdown, leaving it 13-0. The Ichabods try to change the pace a little bit as their QB reaches in to put them on the scoreboard 13-7. But the Mules defense stays focused and does not let that bother them as we see Joshua Terry hop on the ball for a fumble recovery, and it's Mules football. Devontae Turner starts to make it look easy in the second quarter as he trots into the end zone, Mules up 20-14. Bull slings a 16-yard pass to Seth Abear in the end zone for another Mules touchdown, 27-14. The Ichabods try to recuperate with the pass to Kerry Woods, wide open in the end zone to close the gap a little. And Washburn didn't stop there as Blake Pedersen lets a 23-yard pass float in the end zone, leaving the Ichabods up 28-27. The Mules got it together a bit as Devontae Turner put on the Jets for a Mules first down, opening up Seth Abear in the next play for a touchdown, 34-28. Washburn wasn't giving up yet as they slide in a 1-yard run, leading the Mules 35-14, coming with the biggest lead of the game with a 28-yard pass to lead the Mules at the end of the third. Brook Bowls then goes on for a glorious 32-yard run, 42-41 Ichabods. And now the tempo changes a little bit as the Mules defense locks down on the Ichabods and they are scoreless then in the fourth quarter. But the Mules offense just seems to be unstoppable as Brook Bowles throws a looker to wide receiver Kerryon Parker, pushing the Mules up 49-42. And it doesn't stop there as those touchdowns just seem to keep on rolling in for the Mules. Brook Bowles cocks back with Kobe Wilkerson open, stretching out for the touchdown, and these boys just keep fighting. Mules defense is all over the field when there's a fumble recovery by Austin Miller, and yep, it's Mules football. Setting up Devontae Turner to finish strong for a touchdown with the Mules win 62-42. It was the third straight win, putting them up 500-plus yards of the total offense. Bulls had the best all-around game, posting 356 passing yards and completing 23 of 36 passes. He also led the Mules on the ground, rushing for 117 yards and 18 carries, and earned a career high of 6 touchdowns. All of this making him the MIAA Offensive Player of the Week. The Mules are also back in the national rankings, earning the number 23 spot. They are also ranked 6th in the first set of regional rankings. The Mules are on the road again this weekend in Edmond, Oklahoma to take on the Broncos of Central Oklahoma. They come home for Senior Day, November 4th, to face off against Northeastern State, who's yet to win a game.
Cross country competed in the MIAA championships this past weekend, which ended with 3 men finishing in the top 10. Will McLaughlin sat down with one of them for this week's Senior Spotlight.
Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Senior Spotlight. Joining me today from the Mules cross country team is senior Ian Frazier. Ian, thanks for joining us in the studio today.
No problem.
So, coming into this season, you are the senior leader, obviously, for what is considered a very young group all around for Mules cross country. How do you feel this year has gone for you in that leadership role up to this point?
At least, so far, it's been just like really easy going, I think. I think in years past, myself included, like we've kind of had a lot of pressure to perform, not from coaches or anything, just kind of from within, which is, kind of a blessing and a curse sometimes because, UCM cross country has an incredibly rich history with Coach Kirk and everything.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of pressure, at the beginning of every year, to say, okay, in like one of my last old houses, we had the conference championships a banner hanging up on a wall. So So every day, you saw the list of cross-country titles, and so every year, you kind of go in, having this mentality, that you want to be at the top, you want to be winning or at least contending. In years past, it hasn't been that way, but this year it has been. And rather than feel a lot of pressure from outside, or from within, it's all just been kind of smooth sailing and just a lot of faith, a lot of trust in each other, in the coaching, and just kind of the whole environment of the team.
Now you said about competing at the top, or at least looking to compete for a championship. The men's team finishes second at the MIAA Cross Country Championships, and you got to run on your home course at Mules National Golf Course at Pearl Springs. Mm-hmm. What was that feeling like? Like you said, with all that pressure you felt in the past, how did it feel to walk away this past weekend at the MIAA Championships, knowing that you had a top two finish as a team there?
It was really kind of a sweet homecoming for us. I know that was a couple weeks ago, but for us, it was this weekend at the conference championships, which is really special. We haven't been able to go out there, the past few years, which, really kind of sucks. Basketball, team has a basketball court, football team has a football field, but cross-country team hasn't had a cross-country course. So, to be back there, to be back on, the place that's been, that's played host to all this history on the team, it really just felt like a homecoming, getting to do that in front of Mules fans, in front of alumni, in front of, coaches who have had, 20 plus years out there. It was just awesome, to not only, be back, but to be back and, come so close to a conference title. It was a bit emotional, really, because it's just like, everything's kind of, coming back.
Yeah, and all those emotions just kind of hitting you after a while.
Right. And, we're back to the top, putting 3 guys in the top 10, first team all conference and everything. You couldn't ask for a better end.
Yeah, and highlighting on that now, too, you have 3 runners finish in the top 10 at the MIAA cross country meet. Yourself, you go 6th individually with a time of 25 minutes, 45.62 seconds. Do you ever have any emotions or feelings or thoughts going through you when you're running through those races? And what was it like, to have that high finish for you and run one of your best times in your time at UCM?
This weekend especially, it was just a culmination of not just 4 years of training at the collegiate level, but the previous 4 at the high school level. My high school coach is a UCM alumni. He's a huge fan of UCM cross country because he ran for Coach Peterson and everything.
Yeah.
So really, talking about a culmination of everything. This was the culmination of almost a decade of running and a decade of just wanting to compete at the highest level. So, to do that and everything, it was just awesome. You couldn't ask for anything better.
Now, what would you say is a bigger highlight or one of your most defining moments or one memory that sticks out to you in your time as a UCM runner?
Definitely this weekend.
Yeah.
Like I said, to be able to go back to the course, which we've had so many years of history and experience with, and just to do it with the team that we have this year. It is a very young team, and a lot of times that can come with some inexperience or some immaturity sometimes, not in a bad way, but just in, they're freshmen, they're teenagers, they're 18, 19-year-old kids.
Still adjusting to that collegiate style of running.
Exactly. And just, the demands of, collegiate distance running. But, this group is incredibly special. The freshmen we've got are just a bunch of great kids that really want to work hard and, really want to get to the top and stay at the top like UCM cross country has always done. Nice.
Well, we appreciate you coming into the studio, doing the interview. Best of luck with everything this upcoming season, not only as you reach the end of cross country, but into indoor and outdoor track. Should be a lot of fun covering you, man.
Thank you very much.
Like Will and Ian talked about, it was a unique experience for UCM to host the championships. The rain held out, but the wind sure didn't make the races a little bit tougher. The Mules came out with a second-place finish as a team, scoring 71 points and averaging a time of 26 minutes and 9 seconds in their 8K race. They had 3 runners in the top 10. Shadrach Kipnitich was the first mule to cross the finish line, placing 4th. Frazier was just 2 places behind him, and Ronald Ayabe rounded out the top 10. The Jennies placed 8th with a team average time of 24 minutes and 36 seconds for their 6K race. Freshman Mariah Elmore was the top finisher for the Jennies, coming in 18th place. The Mules and the Jennies get to rest before they head to Kearney, Nebraska on Saturday, November 4th for the Central Regional Championships. Stay tuned because after this break, we will hear from our sports editor and take a look at volleyball's highlights from the weekend.
Historic, unique, exciting. As challenges continue to test the mettle of Americans, your community has to depend on willing citizens just like you to answer the call and respond to local disasters and other times of crisis. You may be surprised to find out who we are and what we do. In fact, it could actually be your story too. The Air National Guard.
Welcome back. We're going to take it upstairs to the Mule Skinner to hear from our sports editor for this week's News and Notes.
Hello everybody, I'm Jake Worther up here in the Mule Skinner with this week's edition of News and Notes. We're getting to the end of October and that means Mules basketball season is just around the corner. The regular season will start on November 10th, but the Mules will be in action on October 26th. They'll head down to Florida to take on the Division I Florida State Seminoles. For those of you not familiar with the Seminoles or Division I in general, they were the third most winning team in the ACC last season, and they were the number 3 seed in the Western region, the NCAA tournament. They lost some kids to graduation and to the NBA. Jonathan Isaac and Dwayne Bacon both made their NBA debuts not too long ago. But, there's still a chance for the Mules in this game. Obviously it's a Division I school versus a Division II school, but the Mules are debuting some Division I players this season as well. Blake Spellman, the sophomore from Northern Kentucky, will make his debut for the Mules this season, along with Josiah Talbert, the sophomore from Liberty University, and Philip Winston, the senior from Quinnipiac University, all with some Division I experience making their debut for the Mules. The Mules are set to have a good season too. They were ranked number 2 in the MIAA in the preseason coaches poll. Jennies, however, got the number 1 spot in their preseason ranking, so exciting time for the Jennies. Their season will start November 10th as well. They'll start off against Mary. Switching gears to soccer for a little bit, soccer set some history and made some more records this weekend. They made history by notching the program's 300th win against the Lindenwood Lions this past Friday, so a big win for the Jennies and the program. They also set the MIAA record for most consecutive games with a goal scored in their win over Lindenwood. That marked their 48th game with a goal scored, so big weekend for the Jennies. And finally, in 2 weeks, UCM will host the Youth and School Days in their game against Northeastern here at UCM. This is an annual celebration they have with the Mules where they bring out local youth groups and schools and all kinds of kids and organizations to the game to kind of celebrate the Mules. So it's a big day for the kids and Mules football. So be sure to bring out any youth organizations that you know for that event. That's all I have this week. Thanks for joining me for News and Notes up here in the Mule Skinner. I'm Jake Worther.
Thanks, Jake. Like he said, Jenny Soccer had another successful weekend. On Friday, they faced off against Missouri Southern in Joplin, where they allowed 1 shot by the Lions. The Gens took 27 shots overall, 14 of them being on goal. Kayla Hamner got the first score of the game at the 23rd minute mark, and Jada Scott had the second goal of the game at the 84th minute, making the final score 2-0. Then, on Sunday, the Jennies took a trip to Bolivar to take on Southwest Baptist. They downed the Bearcats 6-0, improving their record to 16-0, only the second time in program history where they are continuously ranked number 1 in the nation.
Jennies volleyball moved to 9-2 in conference play this past weekend as they took down both Pittsburgh State and number 2 Central Oklahoma. Let's take a look at those highlights to see just how it all went down. The Jennies came ready to play. Aubrey Bell started the game off with a cross kill to put the Gens on the board. She landed a total of 6 kills overall at this game. Audrey Fisher played a big game overall. She finished with a team best of 10 kills and had 2 blocks. Jennies back row sets up freshman setter Allie Offerdahl for a stinky tip for a Jennies point. Pitt State manages to get underneath a massive hit from Casey Holland, but when she fires back with another, they are unsuccessful. Holland landed 9 kills in this match. Pittsburgh State committed 10 service errors, allowing for UCM to land 7 serving aces of their own. Katie Carlson and Allie Offerdahl set up Audrey Fisher for an easy tip that the Gorillas could not quite get a handle on. Sophomore Riley Nigenfine is set up for a beautiful cross kill and really utilizes the open spots on the court. The second set saw a few ties and a lot of lead changes in the beginning. Casey Holland started the set off, slamming the ball down for a Jennies point. With the score tied at 8, the Gens went on a 5-1 run to take a 13-9 lead. After a tip from Offerdahl, Pitt State managed to return the ball back to the Jennies side just to set up Casey Holland for a powerful kill point. The Jennies continued to utilize the open spots on the court to acquire points. Junior Brett Moore adjusted well for a left-handed cross kill. The Jennies walked away with a 3-0 sweep, ready to take on their next opponent, Central Oklahoma. The Jennies played an overall solid game of volleyball with contributions from everyone. The Gens came at the Broncos with serving aces, hard blocks, and massive kills. Allie Offerdahl tips the ball for a Jennies point. Senior Molly Lawrence is set up to slam the ball down for a hard line kill, and Hannah Van Buskirk finds the open back corner and puts the Gens on the board with a cross kill. She landed 10 total. Audrey Fisher adjusts to the ball for a tip for the Jennies. The Broncos packed some heat of their own and did not make it easy for the Jennies at times, but UCM continued to respond with power. Lawrence fires back with a cross kill point. Fisher scopes out the back court for a beautiful line kill that the Broncos were not expecting at all. Lawrence takes a strong approach for a cross kill. The Jennies landed 77 kills overall. The Gens managed to get a hand on the ball to put it back on the Broncos court. Aubrey Bell surpasses Broncos blockers for a Jennies point. Casey Holland is given a backwards one set and slams the ball down. She landed a total of 24 kills. The Jennies worked together and adjusted tremendously to continue their fast-paced momentum against Central Oklahoma. The Broncos did respond with some hard hits of their own that the Jennies blockers could not quite get a handle on. The Gens did have to overcome some unforced errors. A Bronco attack error gave UCM the serve, and Bell ended it with her 5th kill of the set. Casey Holland finished it with a massive kill, and the Gens walked off with a 25-17 win and a 3-1 in the match. Casey Holland had a career best of 24 kills against UCO, and Allie Offerdahl had a career best of 57 assists. These achievements brought them both MIAA Honors of the Week, and it was the 2nd week in a row for Holland. The Jennies moved up to the number 16 spot in the AVCA polls and are now tied for 2nd place in the MIAA. Up next, we will check in on Mules Golf and hear from the head coach of Jennies Bowling. Stay tuned.
I choose excitement.
I choose to make a difference.
I choose uncommon opportunities.
I choose Red to experience learning to a greater degree.
Choose Red. Choose the University of Central Missouri.
Welcome back. Mules Golf remains in the top 25 of the Bushnell Golf Week Division II coaches poll after the final fall tournament of the season. They came in at number 24, falling 5 spots since the previous rankings. They wrapped up their fall season with a fifth place finish at the Washburn Invitational last week. Shane Allen placed 6th, making him the highest finisher for the Mules. Overall, they had a great fall season, placing in the top 5 for 4 out of the 5 tournaments.
Jennies Bowling recently started off their season at the Newman Mid-States Invite, where they placed 5th. And this past weekend, they captured a 1st place finish at the Dury Baker Challenge. Over the past 2 days, they went 7-0. The JV team for the Jennies placed 5th as well. Dale Fowler sat down with the Jennies head coach to talk about the start of their season.
Welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner, along with Jennies Bowling coach Ron Holmes. How are you doing today, Ron?
Just fine. Good morning.
That's great. So you guys were picked in the top 5 of the MIAA rankings, and also the top 10 in the National TNP and Coaches Association. So how do you feel about that?
I think that's a nice starting point for us. Last year we graduated some of our experienced players. We have several new individuals that we think will contribute heavily for us, but it's at least an initial starting point, and then also hopefully a little motivation for our athletes, because I think some of them believe that they're a little better than 10th in the nation.
Okay, so you guys finished number 12 last season and then won the inaugural championship. So how do you feel you guys need to do this year to repeat what you did, or then furthermore go on and win the the national championship for the the collegiate bowling?
Sure. I think first and foremost, our goal is to win the MIAA title again, defend that championship. So that's our initial primary goal, and as we continue our work here in the beginning of the year, and then even into March, the team we defeated, which was McKendree University for the conference title, ended up going on to win the actual national championship for all divisions. They return all their players, so they are currently the #1 ranked team in the country. So there's certainly some internal motivation for that as well, and we believe that when we play at our level that we're able to hold our own and do just fine against them or any other team that's in the area.
Okay, and you say you want to repeat that national championship again. So you guys having younger players this year. You only have one senior in Noelle Garrison. So how you feel she can lead this team and just keep this confidence going and repeat what you did last year?
Noelle's really kind of grown into her own player, and she's become a great leader for us and a great person to lean on for experience. But we do have a very young group of athletes to work with. We just have 3 juniors as well that's been contributing, and one of those unfortunately is injured for the foreseeable future. She was actually the MIAA Most Outstanding Player for the postseason tournament, Brianna Zimmerman. So we'll have to lean on all of our returning players as well as hopefully get some nice experience from our new players. There's some really good depth there, and they're pushing for some playing time. So it's a really neat mix of individuals right now to see how it's all going to come together.
Okay, that's great. So you guys already competing in tournaments, so you're already getting a feel for them as well. So how you guys usually prepare for a bowling tournament?
What we traditionally try to do is put them in simulated competition settings. So for example, in our preparations these last 2 weeks, this is very much a preseason mode for us. So we try to balance the teams, put them against each other, almost an inter-squad competition on a daily basis, and then try to simulate some of the different settings that are going to come up for the new athletes. Everyone gets a chance to play, everyone gets a chance to experience what they're doing, but it also allows them the opportunity to tie that in with some of the new skills that they're working on. So as we get into NCAA play here in another week, then they'll really get a chance to be tested with that information, and it'll be a trial by fire right away for us with some of the great events that are going on.
Okay, yes, because this division is pretty tough, and you said playing as a team. Well, this being bowling, it's usually an individual sport. How does really the team aspect come into this?
It's traditionally thought of as an individual sport, but for ours, it's a little bit more of a what's described as an individual team sport. Half of our competition is a traditional team game, which means each player plays a full game and you add those scores together.
Oh, okay.
But the other half is what's called a Baker format, where each person only gets to contribute 2 frames per game towards the total score. So if you have a weak player in there, if you have someone who's struggling, you can't hide them. If you have someone that can dominate what's going on, they can only contribute 2 frames.
Okay.
So therefore, they really have to work and communicate together, and that's whenever you really see the ability for them to make sure, understand what each player is doing. If someone's struggling, how we can get that fixed right away. We can substitute liberally, so we get a chance to do that as well, and incorporate some of those extra individuals that could jump in at a moment's notice.
Okay, so yes, so this will be an interesting season as well. We hope you the best for the rest of your season. And that's all we have for this week's episode of Coach's Corner. See you next time.
Thanks, Dale. Just like the bowling season, the NBA season has kicked into full gear. After this break, Allie and I will discuss everything NBA.
I choose red to blaze my own trail.
I choose red to be with students and faculty who make me feel at home.
I wanted a university with a big picture perspective. That's why I chose red.
Why do you choose red?
Choose red.
Choose red. Choose the University of Central Missouri. Choose red. Can I do that? Is that allowed?
Welcome back to our segment, Pro Talk. This week we're discussing the NBA. So Jada, there's a lot of things that transpire in the NBA overall, a lot dealing with emotions. What's your input on this recently?
You know, we see a lot of good and bad emotions, as we talked a little bit earlier. We saw last week in the Celtics game when Gordon Hayward got hurt, fractured his ankle. We saw emotions from both teams. We saw both teams huddling up and praying and kind of hoping he was okay. We saw LeBron James come over whenever he was on the stretcher and kind of, give him a little words of encouragement, as you can say. But then we also see a whole different side of emotions. We see some negative emotions, and we see players getting fined for silly things such as throwing their mouthpieces or being too emotional on the court, getting teed up, getting kicked out of the game. So we see both aspects of it, but what we don't really think about, I guess, is are these good emotions or are these bad emotions?
Exactly, and I really think social media plays a huge part in that, because I remember LeBron posting a picture with the other team's players and just wishing for a speedy recovery and all that. And also with Steph Curry throwing his mouthpiece, that's another issue with fining and stuff, because I'm pretty sure it was around $50,000 that he had to pay for doing that, which does seem somewhat drastic because, I mean, it is mouthpiece, but still, that's not common in the sports world. So to me, that makes me wonder, all this money they're making, is it just to kind of set them up to have to give it back in the end?
Exactly, because I mean, to me, just thinking about a fine of throwing a mouthpiece is just such a silly thing. But you have to think, even though this is their job to play the sport, they still have the right to get frustrated throughout the game if they're not too happy with the calls or if they're not happy with how they're playing themselves. Okay, maybe he just had a little bit of frustration. I wouldn't say it was disrespectful towards anyone. It was kind of him saying, I'm tossing it, he was just frustrated. And I feel like that we kind of don't think about that.
Exactly, and I'm pretty sure he took to Twitter as well, apologizing because he had no intentions of actually hitting a fan, because he would not want to do that under any circumstances. And another thing that has arose recently is, after games, any sport, not just NBA, they do the high fives, good game. I'm wondering if maybe that's next. Is that going to just go away altogether, or is it just going to be something that you can decide to do if you want to after the game?
Or at this rate that we're going, are you going to get fined if you don't do it?
Exactly.
But you have to think, sometimes after a game, we were talking about just in our sports in general, personally, I run track. After a race, no matter who wins, usually, you tell everyone, every girl, good race, or you either do it before the race starts. So, but there are some occurrences whenever, personally, okay, I didn't run well, I have an attitude, I don't want to tell you good race, I just want to walk and go, personally reflect. And I know you have some experiences like that as well.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely guilty of getting over frustrated with certain situations, but I'm not a college athlete, but I do play intramurals with my sorority, and so we play flag football, and normally when people grab the flags, they rip them off and drop them on the ground and walk away, but after every time I grab a girl's flag, I walk over to her and I hand it back to her, because in a way it's almost kind of killing her with kindness, if you can think of it like that. But I'm just not sure if the whole, because we still do the high-fiving at the end too, and I know track doesn't do that, but with football, basketball, all those, hockey even does it as well. I'm wondering if that's just going to be where they part ways after a certain period of time.
And I kind of feel like it is kind of getting to that. Personally, since my sister played basketball growing up and in college, I've seen some aspects where they will do the high-fiving at the beginning of the game, because at the end of the game there are high emotions. And sometimes, after a tough loss, after maybe a game that goes in a double overtime, that's not the first thing you want to do. So maybe we should start seeing it going at the beginning of the game rather than at the end.
Exactly, and I really think they should start using social media a lot more to kind of give out there and let their audience, let their fans know that they're more involved with them and all that. But thank you for watching this week's episode of Sports Page. Tune in 2 weeks to catch up on all things UCM sports. And for my co-host Jada Hill, I'm Allie Overstreet.